Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but it's not. All the more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Blog Talk Radio.
To Damn You Hollywood, your fairly regular movie review show. I'm Robert Winfree. I'm your host for the evening, and the vast majority of these films, about once or twice a year, I can't take it anymore, and I have to take a mental health break from some of these dregs. But at the moment, I'm still chugging full steam along here. And with me, as always, my regular partner in crime. I think there's only one movie that we're reviewing, that's being reviewed this year, that I've got someone subbing in for Mark. That will be in July, possibly June. I forget which one. It'll be for
July.
Dunkirk, so July. It'll be it's Dunkirk. I know the movie. I know when I'll have a special guest on for that one. But other than that, it's the two of us. He is the I don't know. I just every brief metaphor I tried. Every comparison I tried to come up with just kind of failed me, because they all end very unhappily. It just occurs to me that most famous, and I say this in the most heterosexual way possible, but most male partnerships that are kind of famously notable, they don't end well.
Where are you going with this?
I'm just trying to bring you on, and I thought about having a bit where you are the blank to my blank, some comparison like that, and it just occurred to me that they all end badly. All the examples I had just ended so poorly for at least half of the equation.
You know what's painful about this bit, number one? By the way, my cruise got canceled, so I'll actually be home for Dunkirk. But I mean, we can still have Andrew Graham on. That's fine. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to Pittsburgh now instead to see Primus and Clutch. So it worked out good for me.
You're in Pittsburgh. It did not work out for you.
Primus and Clutch, an evening with both, 2 full headliner sets.
I'm aware, and I'm not saying you won't have fun at the show. I'm saying you'll be in Pittsburgh. So,
I'll also be in West Virginia. Son of Virginia. So
that's enough. Watch out in West Virginia for the bugs, because they are prolific.
So the sad part about this entire bit that you're struggling through and tripping on and clumsy waitering is that a guy that I used to podcast with, ye old John Brodigan, Freak Boy, from the old Scoops days, used to roll these off his tongue like just, like a hot knife through butter. Okay, I was the this to his that. I was the Jim Anvil. I was always the shitty part, okay? I was the Jim Anvil to his Bret Hart. I was the Marty Jannetty to his Shawn Michaels.
The Oates to my Hall.
Yeah, exactly. This just went on and on and on. But, he used to roll those
The Ringo Starr to the rest of the Beatles.
Exactly.
Sorry, I hate the Beatles.
Exactly. I was the cousin to Bronson Pinchot. It doesn't matter. The point is, this is an old bit.
A superior partner and got stuck with me. Okay, you got the raw end of that deal.
But that's the thing is, I wasn't. I was always the shitty partner in those similes. See?
No. You see, my point here is that I'm the downgrade. Right? You had someone who was good at this, and now you're stuck with me.
Yes. Yeah. You're terrible at this. Do what you do well, sir. You do a lot of things well, and in many ways you are superior to John as a partner. For example, this has lasted a lot longer than anything we've ever done. We were like drunken lovers, man. It was explosive when we got together, and it exploded fast. By the way, speaking of explosions, can you explain to me what Fox is thinking in terms of its Blue Sky Studio presentation of John Cena's Ferdinand the Bull? Okay? They're releasing this cartoon, this animated CGI attraction on December 15th. Do you know what comes out September 15th? I'll tell you what comes out September 15th. Star Wars, The Last Motherfucking Jedi. That's the name of the movie, The Last Motherfucking Jedi. And
so they just really needed to be banned in more countries.
Sure. Following in the steps of Beauty and the Beast. Now, here's the thing.
Now, the original Star Wars was banned in a bunch of Scandinavian countries. Several European ones as well, actually, I seem to recall. Didn't like the violence.
As it should be. It's a very violent movie. Lots of people died. It was like 1,000.
Whole planet gets blown
like
up.
A million voices. Yeah, like a million voices crying out at once and then suddenly silenced. You'll never
really,
see
they were just saving their people from, the wooden acting, the shallow plot line, and absolutely awful dialogue.
They're like you're stepping on my incessant Star Wars quoting, so let's move on. Here's my issue. Lucasfilm and Disney have had that date picked out for a long time. You if you are in the movie business, you know when Star Wars is coming out, even before they had a name for the movie. Why would you put your animated feature for the year against Star Wars? There are 52 weeks in a year. What in God's green earth would possess a studio head or somebody doing the scheduling to go, when, we got that John Cena guy from the WWE. He's voicing Ferdinand the Bull. You know when we should release this? Star Wars. Not before, not after, not maybe wait until January when nothing is coming out. When, the biggest thing coming out in January, I think, is Romeo and Juliet. Romeo.
That's a sequel, I seem to recall, too.
Let me give you a hint on that one. We're not reviewing it. I don't even think I'm taking my kids to that. And if I am, I'm still going to spare you. We are taking the month of January 2018 off. No, I've learned my lesson after this year. We should just give this show a break in January. There's no reason to do it.
Every now and then there are months where this show just has no actual purpose other than to torture one of us with just the worst of the worst.
It seems to be January and August for the most part. But even September is a little dry this year. In any case, can you're a reasonable human being. You're brighter than I am in many ways. What the fuck? Can you give a reasonable example? We don't have a lot to talk about with this Power Rangers movie, folks. That's why we're doing this. Can you give a reasonable example as to what would possess Blue Sky and Fox to release John Cena's Ferdinand against Star Wars, The Last Motherfucking Jedi, when every child on Earth, including your unborn children, Robert Winfree, your inner child will be seeing this movie? I don't know why I'm making that joke with you. This was funnier in my head when I was thinking about Gavin and Jed and Pat. but you'll actually have to go see it because you're reviewing it. Lucky you. But my point is, every child on Earth is going to be seeing Star Wars that weekend. No one's going to see Ferdinand the Bull, not even John Cena fans. And just as an aside, John Cena sucks, dun, 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 John Cena sucks. Okay, go.
First of all, you and I have had the debate about John Cena's place in wrestling history as the best ever. And I'm right. He is.
He's better than Ric Flair.
There is unequivocal data to support that particular position. I'm not just spouting opinion. There's a lot of data to support John Cena as the best.
He's better than Ric Flair. I agree with you. Hate Ric Flair.
Yeah, you hate Flair. He's better than Hogan by leaps and bounds. He's so much better than that Warrior schmuck. I mean, what a flame out, right?
Good night, everybody. This has been Damn You Hollywood, and once again, I have lost another partner. Go on.
No, in all seriousness, I have no earthly idea what they were thinking.
This one's even escaping you, huh?
There are two. I have two, okay? I have exactly two. One is a weak attempt to counter-program to the... Bear in mind, when I say child audience, I don't mean the traditional, 7 to 10 child audience that will go see Star Wars. I mean the, 5 and under crowd, okay?
Okay.
That's who they're appealing to here.
I guess.
And again, I feel like there's a very weak attempt at counter-programming, especially if this one follows the because again, for those of you who didn't hear, The Force Awakens is essentially A New Hope, not literally, essentially. And if they follow that general trajectory, The Last Jedi will be a very dark movie, and maybe people decide that they need something. Again, there's a very weak argument for counter-programming. It's extraordinarily weak, and I would never make it. But I believe it does exist. The other is whoever was in charge of scheduling is a very, very burned out, very, very jaded, unhappy professional wrestling fan who remembers the years that he suffered through John Cena's 5 moves of doom at the top of the card for, 2 years plus, and that vitriol and hatred is still welling up within him, and he just had to screw John Cena this way. Alternatively, he is the biggest John Cena fan and thinks that even John Cena will Hulk up, flying shoulder tackle, crappy Blue Thunder bomb into the Attitude Adjustment and beat the mighty George Lucas film and Disney. He's going to take Mickey Mouse and he's going to throw him through a table. Again,
right.
None of this is true. There is no actual basis for that move by that studio. It is mind-boggling.
So here's what the wiki says. In May 2013, Fox scheduled the film for an April 7, 2017 release. Okay, that's good. In February that was a week. There's nothing in April, folks. That's why we're only doing one show, and that's that's The Fate of the Furious. So again, had they kept with April, that'd have been fine. In February 2016, the release date had been pushed back to July 21st. Still okay. July is still a good time to release an animated movie. And August 2016, the release date. Yeah. The release date had been pushed back again to December 22nd, taking over the Croods 2 release date before that movie was canceled. Okay? Again, still a little close to Star Wars, but at least it's the second week. In February of 2017, the film was moved up to December 15th because whoever decided this was smoking crack, opening against Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. The first trailer is slated to premiere in front of The Boss Baby. The trailer did premiere on March 28th. So here's the all-star cast that they've got to capture that niche market of parents who only have a small child and don't want to go see Star Wars for some reason. John Cena as Ferdinand the Bull, David Tennant as Angus, a bull, Anthony Anderson as Bones, a bull.
No. You were going so good.
Gabriel Iglesias as Cuatro, a hedgehog. Kate McKinnon, last seen in Ghostbusters and of SNL fame, as Lupe, a goat. Boris Kodjoe as Klaus, a horse. Miguel, listen to me. I'm so Caucasian. Miguel Angel Silvestre as El Primero, a matador. Raul Esparza as Moreno. Jared Carmichael as Paco, a dog. Gina Rodriguez as Una, a hedgehog. David Diggs as Dos, a mouse. Bobby Cannavale as Valiente, a bull.
Okay,
Sally
you can
Phillips
stop
as
now.
Greta. All right. Flula Borg as Hansa
Look, you had a good top two. All right, you had John Cena and David Tennant. Those two were strong choices. And then you
well, hang on.
There's no decline. You just fall off a cliff.
All right, Gabriel Iglesias is very funny and very popular. The man makes
Who is he
tons of
again?
money. He's Fluffy.
I have
fat
no
Mexican.
context for what you're saying.
You don't know who Fluffy is?
I mean, Fluffy's an adjective. Alternatively, a dog's name.
So how about that Power Rangers movie?
All right. We can move on to that. Since we've killed,
Netflix,
20
right?
minutes.
You have Netflix, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, when this is over, go get on your Netflix and look up Hot and Fluffy or I'm Sorry for What I Said When I Was Hungry or Aloha Fluffy. One of them will be on Netflix.
Oh, is he a stand-up comedian?
Okay? Yes. He's
Well,
very
that explains
funny
why
and
I
very
don't.
clean.
That explains why I have no context. I don't hate stand-up comics. That's almost what I said, and that's not accurate. I just won't watch comedy specials. They don't interest me.
Go, Robert Winfree. He hates stand-up comedy.
Oh, come on. I just went out of my way to clarify that I don't hate all stand-up comedy or stand-up comics. I just have no interest in the traditional comic specials.
He won't watch stand-up comedy.
That's not true either.
I'm going to keep doing this until you move the show on.
Your plagiarized song is false.
You're going to start it, or I have to keep singing.
All right, let's get on to the movie because while we may not have a whole lot to say about it, there are things that need to be said, and unless we want to be sued for false advertising, because this is technically a review of the Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, technically.
I'm saying if it actually turns into 90 minutes of us just, yelling about other movie placements.
I was going to say I could do 90 minutes. I could do 90 minutes on why anyone would counter-program against Star Wars, but let's move on.
I think Star Wars could be counter-programmed, just not with a kids movie.
Not with that kids movie. Maybe Disney could counter-program themselves. Frozen 2, maybe.
Toy Story 4, Frozen 2. I mean, personally, I'd go. If I were counter-programming Star Wars, if someone said to me, okay, we need something to come out the same week as Star Wars. There's no getting around this. What are you putting out? Personally, I'm going, again, just so far opposite Star Wars. I'd go with a horror movie, in all honesty.
50 Shades Darker?
Mark.
You can
No.
end this. You can control this. You can move this podcast on.
All right. Well, you asked, and I wanted to give a legitimate answer to said, admittedly stupid question. All right, moving on. Again, you can't just throw out stupid questions to me. I will try to answer them as honestly and as thoughtfully as possible. That's how this works.
You're wrong. You know what's hysterical? So, December right now has... The 1st of December has one movie coming out by Screen Gems, and it's a horror movie called He's Out There. Then on the 15th, you've got fucking Star Wars and Ferdman. And then, all the movies come out on December 22nd. Listen to this lineup. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Pitch Perfect 3, The Current War, Downsizing, and Bastards. And then on December 25th, one movie is coming out, which I initially, I think, had on the schedule, but it's not. There's just no time if we want to do other stuff and actually have time off and, celebrate holidays. But I do want to see this at some point.
It's The Greatest Showman, right? The biopic
The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one as well.
That one we may just have to review late then, like see it and review it at a later date.
Or our year-end show.
And then December 31st, untitled Paramount horror film. I do enjoy these untitled movies. Anyway, it's like
it's a weird month. All right, there was a lot of scheduling conflicts as far as January and December goes.
Yeah, December and November sucks too. But all right, we could do this all day. Go on.
We could, and we will when we maybe towards the end. But as far as this goes, all right. Moving on to the Power Rangers reboot. For those of you unaware, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came to the United States in the early 90s. It was a really ingenious bit of television because for the first run, and it was not only a huge success stateside, huge success. Again, if you weren't alive at the time, I'm not sure I can adequately, because I was a small child at the time. This was aimed at me. I was already in karate, and I watched their moves and laughed at them because I did Kenpo, not Taekwondo, and I firmly believe that my art was superior. Still hold that opinion, by the way. And anyway, aimed right at me, huge. All right. Again, not sure I can. I'm not sure there's an adequate parallel that has come after. If for the older generation, maybe like the Beatles, because the Beatles were a big thing. Again, if you were a kid in the early 90s, these things were everywhere. It was also, again, from a television perspective, they only had to shoot half an episode. They would shoot the between fight scene stuff with the cast they had, but all the fight sequences and all the action stuff, they literally just ported over from the Japanese version. They would have their cast do voiceover so that all the crappy narration still happens. But, I mean, really it was an ingenious bit of budgetary management. Here's this, wildly popular product, and we only have to film half an episode because all this other stuff, we have footage. We can just use that. And it's, for those, again, you want to know how successful and popular it was? It's still going. Not just in this reboot for the cinema. I mean, there's still a Power Rangers television series that is going on. Such is the insanity of the world at this point. I don't even know which one it is, but it's still there. And so again, wildly popular, wildly successful. Now we get this reboot, which is aimed at the original 5 from the American series. Those are the names they brought back. They're essentially the characters with some significant alterations in many ways, which we'll get into once we talk about their characters. But that's who it's aimed at. Yeah, sorry, that's the idea. And, Mark, I want to get your perspective on this before we get into the plot synopsis and whatnot. I mean, you're old. You're, a full 10 years older than I am, give or take. So you would have been a teenager or early teens when this thing came out. I imagine it doesn't hold a whole lot of nostalgia value. So when they announced they were doing this, what was kind of your thought process? Did you have any expectations? What were your, when you went to see this, how did you kind of go into watching this movie?
So remember when I said to you that there are some movies that I feel obligated to review because of the nature of this show, but I have absolutely no excitement about it? Throw this one at the top of the list. It's just I had no interest in going to see this movie. I think occasionally when we have time around the house, I'll play a movie for my kids because, one, I think they'll like it, but also I'm trying to gauge their reaction to things. And I played for them the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, which I did see in the theaters. And
yeah, so
my
did
friend
I.
And I actually, my friend and I actually thought the movie was hilarious. I think I've told this story before.
Not in the intentional way.
Well, I mean, there's a scene in the movie where the parents have been mind controlled and the kids are running amok in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go into a whole sidebar on this, but I was an angsty teenager who was angry with his parents, and as was the friend that I saw this with. So we both kind of reacted to a scene where you have one kid going, "Hey, our parents are under mind control and they're walking off a cliff," and you have to understand. There's a song playing at the time. The song is called "Trouble" by the band Shampoo, which my friend and I thought was a great song, and we would sing it and just have a gay old time, laughing and having fun and singing the song. Uh-oh, we're in trouble. And I remember, like, both of us laughing at that part of the movie and thinking if somebody had come up to us and said, "Hey, your parents have been mind controlled and are walking off a cliff," we'd have kept dancing, singing "Uh-oh, we're in trouble." That was the mindset of teenage Mark Radulich. But so, as far as the show goes, I thought it was just the dumbest thing. I mean, if this came out in 1990, that puts me in my freshman year of high school, so 14-ish, 15 years old, somewhere in there. And I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of kung fu fighting movies or shows. I've never really been would it be cinephile if you're like a fan of Japanese culture, or is that Chinese?
It kind of goes either way. I think more Chinese as far as the kung fu movies. In terms of like Japanese culture, that's not the culture that has appealed to me. That it appeals to most kids, I think, who are who have any kind of affinity for foreign culture. So, did I watch the Power Rangers? Occasionally. If I couldn't, if we didn't have a remote control television and it followed Pinky and the Brain or something, or whatever it was, I guess it was on Fox. So, whatever I was watching on Fox, if Power Rangers followed and I didn't want to get off the couch, I guess I was going to watch it. But I just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And it was the campiest acting, and the fighting was just silly. But it was, I wasn't offended by it. It just kind of was, this is a mindless distraction for 22 minutes. Incidentally, what I tend to sorry. That was a thought that I thought better of, essentially. No, yeah, that's not an inaccurate assessment. All right. As for this movie, well, I suppose we should just jump in. We open with our introduction to Jason Scott, who will become the Red Power Ranger. He is the star. This poor kid. And I say this in only one way. Hang on. In only one way. He's the star quarterback of the football team for his high school, and he's playing a prank on the rival team. He wants to leave a cow in their locker room because their team mascot is the bull, and you get stupid high school stuff. If this had been set in tech, hang on, it is. Don't even try to pretend otherwise. My point being,
you said cow. It's tradition in the Radulich household that when we see cows, we all yell moo. You said cow, so I'm mooing. Moo!
It's a bull, and there was a milking joke.
Moo.
And that somehow became creepier. My point being, here's the point I was trying to make. If this occurs anywhere in the South, like especially Texas, none of the follow-up happens. Like the cops show up, and what are you doing? I'm leaving a bull in their locker room. All right, wait, you're the quarterback, right? Yeah, that's me. You're leaving a bull. Oh, I get it. That's funny. Yeah, go on, get out of here. I mean, seriously, that's what would happen. Anyway, because this takes place in California and not a state obsessed with, scholastic level athletics, he has to run from the police in a terribly shot sequence. I mean, the car chase that they go through is just the dirt worst. I mean, the dirt worst. Looks like it was filmed on an iPhone, and a cheap one. Anyway, he tries to escape from the cops. This goes poorly, gets into a car wreck, bangs up his knee, gets arrested, has the ankle bracelet and everything. Ruins his career again, ruins his knee, so now he can't play, and now he's not going to get the scholarship, and now his life is over. Well, at least that aspect of it. And because he's, now clearly some kind of delinquent, apparently one action is enough to... plot holes aside. As with most delinquents, he is sentenced to... They refer to it as detention, which is just stupid. Because at this point, it's not detention. There's actual, state-level governance involved. But where he meets up with, all the other misfits and ne'er-do-wells and kids who are going to wind up living in double wides huffing glue on the weekend because how did their life go so wrong? And he meets, first he sees Kimberly, who's a cheerleader who is stuck in this location because she punched out some other kid after sharing some, what I am led to believe was sexually explicit material around the school of a friend of hers. Because, I don't know. I literally think the justification they gave for that series of actions was, pardon my language, bitches be crazy. I mean,
accurate assumption.
Again, here's my thing. She regrets the action later, and there's a bit of angst about it, and that's fine. That's actual character. I'm okay with that. But there is no motivation. So, okay, why did you do this? I don't know. I almost expected an I'm on my period excuse. I mean, that's how poor the writing was.
Go on.
Anyway, we also meet Billy, a high-functioning autistic. I'm not sure where exactly he would fall on the spectrum, though he is, by his own admission, on said spectrum. I have a minor gripe about elements of his... It's a disorder only, and I don't mean that as a negative. It's an emotional disorder or an empathy disorder. That's how it's categorized. So when I say it's a disorder, I don't mean a whole lot of negative vibes.
He's probably closer to the Asperger side than he was the autism side. I mean, a lot of the clues are there. He's also high functioning.
Yeah, no, again, I said high functioning. He is either very high functioning autistic or slightly more on the severe side for Asperger's syndrome. One of those two.
Either way, they couldn't make him too severe. He wouldn't have been able to do anything Power Ranger-y.
Yeah, no, I understand. My only gripe is elements of his condition seem to go away as the movie progresses. And for those of you unaware, that's not a curable condition, okay? It's treatable. Again, there are things you can treat it, you can learn.
Medication, the counseling, medication, Zord.
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like in a lot of ways. And, I'm fine if you want to have... I mean, look, I take some umbrage with the claim that he's the first autistic character in a major blockbuster because, let's be clear, Drax is autistic. All right? They just cover it up by saying, well, he's from a planet where everyone's like that. But no, really. Inability to gauge sarcasm or metaphor, read social cues. There's a reason children, there's a huge contingent of children who are on the spectrum who love Drax because they identify with him. All right, so this kid, not the first. But we get he and Jason bond because Jason sticks up for him and bitch slaps the bully, which is fine, you know. He and Billy bond a little bit further because Billy says, you got that anklet. I can fix that for you. Okay. Jason, being, you know, every teenager on house arrest ever, goes, yes, I am all for this. And because magic movie, he can fix it. It's not that easy, guys. Just a minor gripe. Anyway, Billy succeeds. He and his payment, the payment he wants for this service rendered, he wants Jason to go dig up rocks with him at the local gold mine. Jason's like, sure, I'll drive you. Then I get the van for a few hours. I get away from my parents and the aftermath of me being a dumbass teenager. He leaves. So he goes up. He leaves Billy. He runs into Kimberly, who is swimming out her angst in a quarry pond. I mean, this is just like the weirdest town, right?
Look, I don't want to disrupt your flow here, but if there's anything I had a major problem with in terms of like the plot and setup, especially as how these five got together, it was the choice to go skinny dipping in what appeared to be a toxic pond. I was like, what? That's why she's there? Like, when she said, my house is on the other side of the mountain, if that had been followed up with, and I was running away from home, this was the quickest way out of town, I would have been like, okay, that's fine. And he happened to see her there. But she's like skinny dipping in the toxic quarry pond. And if that's not toxic, then that's the cleanest quarry I've ever seen.
Yeah. Anyway, also around this area are Zach, who is self-proclaimed crazy, and Trini, who is trying to do like yoga with death metal blaring through her headphones, which I imagine was your favorite part of the whole movie.
Oh, she's my favorite character. You kidding me?
Why am I not surprised? I mean, really, there's a world where it's a toss-up between her and Billy, but Billy's not black enough to appeal to you.
Oh, he's not even close. The Asian kid was blacker than he was. But no, Trini or Trinity or whatever the hell her name is.
Trini, Trini.
Angsty Latina lesbian listening to death metal, right up my alley. Hubba hubba.
Sadly, you are nowhere near hers.
Sadly enough. Such is the cross that I bear.
Yeah.
And my Caucasian 30-year-old wife, currently working on her posh sales, just wondered, what the fuck did he just say? God damn you. You're supposed to support these bits.
What were you saying, huh? What's going on over there?
I'm in love with a teenage lesbian Latina Power Ranger.
Next time on Divorce Cast.
She just said good for you and went back to doing her posh thing. By the way, if you're interested in skincare products, check out my wife's fucking posh site on what, Facebook?
Can we hold that for the plugs, please?
She might be asleep by then. What now? What did you say over there? Facebook group. Yeah, Facebook group. What's it called? Is it called fucking Posh whatever shit?
It's called Posh with Mel Rad.
Posh with Mel Rad.
Yep. Or you can find it at
all right.
melrad.po.sh.
So look on Facebook for Mel Rad Posh. Posh with Mel Rad if you would like to buy lovely skincare products. We swear by these things. We swear by them, I tell you. Buy from the woman who's okay with her husband being in love with a teenage lesbian Latina who listens to death metal and does yoga on a cliff.
And, you know, isn't a real person.
And is not a real person.
Anyway, Billy detonates some explosives in the wall because he's still working through the loss of his father, and this was one of the things they did together. And for those of us on the spectrum, routine is deeply important. Don't mess with the routine. That's not a joke. Like, seriously, don't mess with the routine.
I'm not autistic, and I don't like when people mess with my routine. Right, Melissa? I don't know if you heard of
probably,
it, but that's a true statement.
I'm probably like undiagnosed Asperger's personally, very light as far as that goes, but again, don't mess with the routine. It's a bad thing.
You're a little aspy.
I'm okay with it. And anyway, so they go digging, they blow it up, they find a wall of obsidian, which I'm shocked none of them knew what it was, because I'm watching it like, oh, yeah, it's obsidian. What are you, idiots? Within said obsidian wall, they find the power coins that will lead them to being the eventual Power Rangers, but they're not supposed to be here. It's a nearly abandoned mine, or a mine that's in the process of closing down. Mine security shows up. We get another stupid car chase that was filmed on a GoPro, 2-generation GoPro. Okay, like not even the most recent. Okay, just so everyone understands. This ends with them being hit by a train, and apparently in the world's strongest minivan, because I have seen, and it's not a joke, I have seen the aftermath of cars meeting trains in real life. Believe me when I tell you, a train like that, you would not get that type of impact. It explodes. All right? Anyway, they miraculously survive said encounter because now they're becoming the Power Rangers, you see. They all wake up in their own beds, a little bit confused by the whole thing, and now sporting incredible physiques and enhanced strength and so on and so forth. They meet, they decide, no, things a little bit weird here. I kind of got bit by a radioactive spider. I need to figure out what's going on. So they all put their heads together and they decide, well, we're going back up there. They all go back up there, and what do we find? A spaceship. And an obnoxious alien robot that wakes up when they arrive because they have brought the power coins back to I can't say some of this with a straight face. They have brought the power coins back to the spaceship. This wakes up the consciousness of the last Ranger leader who died protecting Earth. He was responsible for the death of the dinosaurs when he caused the meteor to strike the Earth, stopping the evil Rita, played by Elizabeth Banks, from stealing the crystal that allows life to exist on the planet. Again, I am well aware of how stupid this is. And now they have to turn them back into the Power Rangers. They have to train them because Rita's back, you see. They dredged her corpse on a fishing vessel. How many near-world-ending catastrophes have been caused by poor fishermen who are just trying to make a living? I mean, really, could we have a slightly more... these poor guys. Like, this is a service that is necessary. I am providing it. It's a tough life, but it provides for my family. And, oh, by the way, there's a 30% chance that on any given trip, I'm going to dredge something up from the bottom of the ocean that will threaten all life on this planet. Ugh. So Rita is now gaining power. She wants to collect gold. She's a gold digger, so to speak. I mean, they're bad and they write themselves. She needs enough of the material to recreate her minion Goldar. Get it? Gold R. He's a pirate, you see. Who will punch through the Earth's crust and retrieve what was it? Zeo crystal.
I took my son to Toys R Us today. We had an hour to kill before I brought him to his preschool class. Preschool, buddy. And the first thing he came across was the entire wall of Power Rangers. Which, by the way, good on Saban and Lionsgate for doing a better job than Disney does of making sure the products are on the shelf when the movie's fucking relevant. You would not think that there were any other toys available but Power Ranger toys today. But the first thing he did was run over to the Goldar toy and was like, Daddy, I want this. So you can say what you want, but it appealed to a 3-year-old.
Well, sure, he looks cool. I mean, why wouldn't it appeal to a 3-year-old? I don't even mean that facetiously. Like, their character design for this version of Goldar is legitimately kind of cool.
Hang on a second. So I'm sitting here sending like every invite I had to every. Don't invite. Oh, well then I'll stop doing what I'm doing then. Yeah. Sorry.
Anyway, this group, so they receive some counsel from Bryan Cranston's face, who deserves better. With a visual effect.
Wait a minute. He is the wall that knocks. Get it?
With a visual effect that reminds me, and boy, I wish I remembered the actual name for these things. Mark, you're old enough to remember these toys. The metal pins that you could like put your hand into.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what that effect looked like.
Pretty sure they called him that in the movie.
I don't recall that. But yeah, it's a terrible effect. I have a major gripe with elements of the visual effects from this movie. But they have to train now because they can't actually morph yet. You see, they're all selfish and they're all stupid teenagers. And, well, the only cure for this is to be beaten to a pulp by holograms in an attempt at team building. Which honestly, doesn't really work.
No, I've seen worse team building activities. I was fine with this.
But you work in corporate team building, which is like a joke. I mean, it's the biggest gag that anyone with a brain can ever think of. Corporate team building exercises. What a crock. Anyway, so they begin training. They're fighting holograms. They're attempting to bond. This doesn't go very well. They come to blows at one point. Billy stops them and spontaneously summons his armor. They get a look at the Zords, which are machines. And really, we promise you, they're not like the lions from Voltron. Except they're, exactly like the lions from Voltron.
Well, one of them's a pterodactyl. And one of them appears to be some sort of...
They take different...
One of them's an ape.
They take a different physical form, but that's exactly what they are. I mean, really, the team building since I brought it up, the team building exercises from the new Voltron series were so much better than this.
Well, the whole Voltron series was better than this movie, but that's besides the point.
Anyway, so they actually do wind up bonding over a bonfire a little bit. Trini confesses her discomfiture with her family, which is, I'm not quite sure if it's a little bit Indian. I think it's Indian. There's a little Indian background there. That would be country India, not Native American. Something like that. And she's struggling with her sexual identity, which is fine. I'm not going to talk about that any more than this because it doesn't matter. Plenty of teenagers have that struggle. It's fine. It's a non-factor. Anyone out there complaining about it, shut up. It's a non-factor. Billy talks about missing his dad and confesses to liking country music, which was odd. Zach, who this is actually like the only bit of real character building he gets because, well, somebody has to take a bit of a backseat. So his relationship with his mom is what is kind of at the forefront here. He lives in a trailer park and his mom is sick. We're not sure with what, but it's a pretty serious illness. I imagine cancer, but again, never confirmed. And he's dealing with her inevitable loss, which is a rough thing. And what that will mean for him in the world because he comes from a single-parent household. And again, when I say like there's, typical angsty teenager stuff, it's true, but that's also a relatively universal experience to varying degrees. Kimberly eventually comes clean to Jason that, I sent this text. I sent this, again, sexually explicit picture of my friend. And again, no motivation. That's what really killed me about that scene. I mean, again, if you're angry and you send a revenge text and then you feel remorse, and again, you're dealing with this character development, that's fine. I get it. But no, I did this terrible thing. And no one even bothers asking why. She doesn't explain why. It's just like, okay, you did a bad thing. It doesn't make you a bad person. Let's move on. A sentiment I can generally get behind, but as a moviegoer, I'm still kind of left going, so your explanation is women are crazy. Again, they bond a little bit, and I think that same night, Rita, who has been killing people and stealing gold from them, usually in the form of their teeth, she robs a jewelry store because, again, she needs gold. Rita attacks Trini, gets her to lure all of the Rangers to a specific location where she easily overpowers them. Billy has discovered the actual location of the Zeo crystal because apparently the misconception about various autism spectrum disorders giving you super brain powers is alive and well. It doesn't. It's just the brain works differently. Consequently, some things that appear difficult to others process differently. So, again, it bothered me a little bit. But anyway, he was able to, with data provided by the ship, actually figure out where it was. So he tells Rita where the crystal is right before she dumps him in the water where he drowns. The Rangers take him back to Zordon because apparently the consciousness of Bryan Cranston stuck in a wall has the power over life and death. In this case,
they
again, not actually a joke.
That's not fair. They didn't know what else to do when their friend had died.
I know, that's not completely fair. That's fine. So they take him back to Zordon. None of these people know CPR, by the way, which I found really disheartening.
Well,
I mean, statistically speaking, 1 out of the 5 of you should know CPR. Yeah, but it was Billy. Well, had he brought up knowing CPR prior, again, this is a basic life skill that I feel everyone should have, especially if you live in a fishing town. Come on. Well, if you live in the middle of the desert, fine.
It kind of cuts the cart out of that scene if they save him. They have to bring the dead body back.
Again, I'm not saying they have to save him, but none of them know CPR. I actually think it adds to it if they're able to make a legitimate effort. We actually try, compressions and breathing, and come on, live, damn it! Come on, this scene has been done 1,000 times, and it can be done well.
You know what they should have done? They should have been someone give him CPR, and they would have been oh, I don't want to touch him. I don't want to get his autism on me. Just don't understand how that works in any way. So they think that you can catch it by kissing. That's how they should have handled it.
Alternatively, I would have accepted one of them saying that, like Zach, because he's kind of a bonehead. And then finally, one of them going, okay, I'll do it, but wait, I don't know CPR. They try to do it, they go to start and, oh crap, I don't actually know how to do this.
See, that actually would have been good.
And again, there's ways they could have dealt with that. And again, don't make it a joke even. Actually have it be, oh crap, none of us know CPR, he's going to die. None of us know this very basic life-saving procedure that everyone should know.
You're very much stuck on this point. We have spent 3 hours on this movie that should have been done by now.
Sorry. Anyway, they take him back to Zordon. The sacrifice of Billy finally brings them all together and makes them realize that they would die for each other, and they're a family, you see, because we can't trust our real families.
For you.
We're teenagers.
5 words I'd swear to you. When you breathe, I want to be the air for you, except Billy. I'll be there for you, except Billy. Go on.
They are able to tap into the morphing matrix, which should theoretically allow Zordon to retake physical form, but Zordon allows Billy to come back to life. That's all very non-explained. Rita starts her assault. Seriously, this movie is 2 hours long, and there's not a legitimate action sequence in the first, hour and a half. All right? They are finally able to morph into their armor. They go out, they fight a bunch of crappy CGI'd minions. They summon the Zords. They fight Goldar. They summon Megazord. They beat Goldar. They pimp slap Rita into outer space. That's not a joke. Actually what happens in the movie.
And it's awesome.
I didn't say it wasn't. I just said I'm not making a joke.
Pimp slapped the fuck out of her is what they did.
They are hailed as heroes. They return the Zords. They leave Zordon underground.
Wait. Yes, they are hailed as heroes after they've Man of Steel'd the down.
Further proving that was an asinine point by so many people. Like, hey, we saved this town. Half of it was destroyed by the invading evil force that's trying to kill the world. Boy, you guys really did save our asses. Superman, how dare you? The dumbest. That was the most unfounded, single dumbest complaint leveled at Man of Steel. The dirt worst.
And if you want to hear more about that, you should check out our In Defense of Man of Steel podcast currently in the archives here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. End this fucking plot synopsis before I start singing.
I'm trying, but, then you bring up another point. Anyway, they're hailed as heroes. They go back to their regular lives with... Yes, they go back to their regular lives with the promise that they will reconvene should the next intergalactic threat arrive, which it inevitably will, because a bell cannot be unrung, you see. Further proof that it should have been. Now you got me on like Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice crap.
No, by the way, and the other reason why is because they've got like 5 or 6 more films planned for this series.
Which may or may not get made, but when we get to the money, we'll talk about it.
They're going to get made.
I'm not sold. I'm just saying, I'm not sold on that one.
Okay.
Anyway, they all kind of reconvene. They go back to their lives a little bit better, a little bit richer, personality-wise for the experience. And we get a mid-credit scene promising the arrival of Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger. All right. Did I miss anything? Are there any subplots, any other points you wanted that I should have brought up before we get into the craft of this thing?
No, there are no subplots in this movie. This movie barely has a plot.
The closest thing you get to a subplot is Zordon doesn't want to be stuck in this freaking wall.
Okay, look, I've made a lot of jokes tonight. Hee hee ha ha ho. And we're having fun here. And it might sound like, oh, this is going to be 90 minutes of these guys just fucking this movie right in the ass, no lube, as we like to say at work. However...
Well, you work in a prison. It's an accurate... Jail, sorry. You work in a jail. It's probably I corrected myself. It's probably a more accurate description on a regular basis for you in your profession.
It's often talked about actually among the deputies that, due to scheduling and this and that and the other. I actually had a deputy, won't say if it was male or female, you can just imagine, say that due to scheduling and people getting vacations, he was the all right. Fuck. So it was a female. She was the only woman scheduled at my particular facility, and she referred to the experience as being fucked in the ass with no lube. So
fair.
And so you might be thinking to yourself, "Is this my beautiful house?" You might also be thinking to yourself, "Boy, these guys are going to tear this movie apart." Look, I didn't hate the movie. I gave it, and I want to be clear about this, 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars on Rotten
You were
Tomatoes,
generous.
not 4 stars. Well, look, let me defend myself before you run around and tell me I'm wrong.
I'm more than happy to share different opinions. And I do want your perspective, but just bear in mind, mine is you were about a star, maybe 1.5 stars generous.
Okay. I went into this thinking that after the first 20 minutes of the movie, we'll get Power Rangers doing stuff, and I wasn't particularly excited by that. But as I said, I'm here to do a job, and that job is to watch blockbuster movies. I was pleasantly surprised, personally, that they went in a different direction with this and actually told, if you divorce yourself from the known source material and you just allow yourself to watch the movie unfold, you do get a story. Granted, it's paint by numbers. I mean, it's the Marvel formula for success. boiled down to its least common denominator. But, it's a story of 5 disaffected teenagers coming together and forming a family of their own, learning to work together. A tale as old as time. I mean, as we've said on this podcast before, there are only so many plots in this world. You can't fault the movie by using a very popular trope, a very popular plot, as it were. It's what you do with it that matters, not that you do it at all. So I was I was pleasantly surprised that they actually took time, and I actually thought this was quite brave of them. They took time to let you get to know the characters before distracting you with color and Zords and actions and a town on fire and Krispy Kreme. I really like that aspect about the movie. Let me address this issue now, and this is what I was talking about with, I don't even think my daughter's going to like this movie, but we're going to give it a shot and see it anyway. I'm a 40-year-old man. I'm about to be 41 in a few months, and I review films in some capacity at least once or twice a week, every week of the year. And if I'm not doing film, I'm doing television. I have the patience to wait 90 minutes for the third act kablooey, action sequence, where you finally get to see the aforementioned Power Rangers and Zords. I really like the fact that they saved that for the end. I don't, and if the film is trying to serve me and my ilk as a master, that's one way to do it, and I can certainly appreciate it. But let us remember, I saw this movie Friday night at 8:45, and it was filled with kids. And I kind of felt bad for them because I don't know how many of them have the patience to wait that long for one action sequence that features the titular named characters, the Power Rangers. Now, you do get some stuff in the middle. You get the training sequence, which has them fighting holograms. You get the one kid who went on a joyride with the Zord, which I thought was funny. But other than that, it's a lot of talking. Oh, and you have their botched battle with Rita. So there are some quasi to semi-legitimate action sequences sprinkled throughout this thing. But it's all of them in their street clothes. They don't morph to the very end of the movie, and then just as soon as they morph, they get the Zords. And then there's an extended sequence of them fighting in the Zords, and then finally they become the Megazord, and the movie's over. Was it satisfying for me? Sure. Will it be satisfying for my 6-year-old? I'm betting no. Was it satisfying for the majority of the kids ages who the fuck knows to 12, 13, 14, 15? Ugh. Maybe? I didn't take a poll. But
probably not.
I feel like the biggest problem with Power Rangers is it was trying to serve too many masters, and in the end it becomes tonally muddled. I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. It's not particularly imaginative. It's not particularly original, but I was entertained, and I thought structuring it the way they did was fairly brave, considering the source material. The other thing I will say is, in terms of craft, I didn't think the kids were that bad. I thought the performances were fine. Nobody annoyed me.
The robot annoyed me.
Yeah. You hate Bill Hader. But
I do.
And
I really do.
But actually, I thought Bill Hader did a better job of making the robot less annoying than the original robot from the show.
Oh, no. There will be no comparisons to the original show as far as this goes. I not just because, time has gone by. I genuinely feel like this movie is trying to be very, very different, as different as it can be on many levels from the original, which is not good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying it makes the comparison to the original irrelevant and unfair.
Okay. In any case, I didn't think Bill Hader was that bad. I really thought, there was a lot of restraint used with the characters. The teenagers were angsty, but not so overly angsty as to make them unlikable. The robot was a funny bit of comic relief, but he wasn't so off the chart ridiculous that, he made my skin crawl whenever I listened to him do dialogue. Michael Cranston was,
a non-factor.
He was the wall.
Let's be fair. I love Bryan Cranston, but
Bryan,
you could have put me in the role of Zordon for this movie and not altered it in any substantive way.
Well, I did like the one thing they did, and I guess this is a minor subplot if you want to call it that. But I like the fact that he wasn't pure of soul either, that he had an ulterior motive for wanting to do all this, and that was get the fuck out of the wall. And
I'd like my body back, please.
And he kind of had to sit back and go, you know what? For the greater good of this team, I'm going to sacrifice myself and stay in the wall so I can bring this kid back to life, who clearly is the heart and soul of this team. And it was a bit surprising, but I liked it. I thought it added to the movie. I thought it added to him as a character. The star of this movie, by far, is Elizabeth Banks. Holy shit. She is so good. And, she is, we often talk a lot about, mustache twirly villains just chewing up the scenery. And we've talked, for a long time now, the last couple of movies, we talked about Gaston last week. We talked about, the week before that, Kong Skull Island and Samuel L. Jackson. We talked about the villains in Logan. And we've been saying for a while now about how these villains, they have a point of view and they are restrained in some way. And
nuanced, interesting, well written.
Then you have Elizabeth Banks, who I'm pretty sure her only direction was, if you could not leave any scenery left after you're done eating it, that would be great. She's fantastic. If you have any sort of tolerance for overacting, mustache twirly, Maleficent on crack type villainy, she's great. She just rides that line of menace and nonsense so well. I was highly entertained every time she was on screen. Her scenes where she's essentially sexually molesting Trini, I don't know what she's doing in that scene, but, she's grabbing her by the chin and throwing her around the room. I thought it was great. I was highly entertained. And then at the end, and she's just she's doing her model walk through the street with Goldar behind her. She looked badass, man. And look, this is not exactly going to be hot fire in terms of cinematic excellence. This is a popcorn movie. And so you kind of want that one character who just comes through the screen and is wildly entertaining. And she was. I wasn't looking for her to be Heath Ledger's Joker. I was looking to be entertained. And she's the most entertaining part of this movie by a long shot. I thought the movie, as far as how it was shot, I thought the movie was going to be that shaky cam filmed on a GoPro shit they did in the beginning, which was starting to give me a headache. Thankfully, they went back to traditionally shooting the movie after that. And, so now let's jump to the action sequences at the end. There was a comment made about, in one of the reviews, about the action was hard to follow. I got enough of a sense of what they were trying to do, but it really was a lot of cockpit shots.
It's about as bad in terms of following and tracking the action. I'd put it on par with the first Transformers movie, which was, bear in mind, kind of a mess. So I understand that complaint. It's a little, better than the first. I think the first two Transformers movies in terms of, well, boy, don't these all look the same. But
the first one I didn't think was that bad. The Revenge of the Fallen is not only a terrible movie, but it's impossible to follow what's happening. So I don't remember if that's the one with Devastator's nuts. But
it is.
But so when I tell you that the Devastator's nuts are the only thing I remember about that movie, tells you how bad it is. However, Age of Extinction is mwah.
We're
That's
not
deserved.
doing that bit anymore. Stop it.
All right. God damn it. Academy Award. Anyway, look, it's a lot of cockpit shots. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a pass, like a C level pass, not SCA, but like the letter C for cookie. And here's why: they shot this thing on $100 million budget, and they're smart about that because had they gone the Ghostbusters route, not to bring up that sore again, but one of the things that they said about Ghostbusters is, your mileage may vary content-wise, but the budget was way too high for that. Without really knowing what they had and given the potential negative feedback they were going to get. If they had shot it for less, it would have been obviously it would have been more successful, given how much it made. This thing needs to make $200 million to be minimally profitable, not counting toy sales, which even before this movie, the Power Rangers toy sales were still pretty high. I mean, I've had kids for 6 years now, and for all 6 years, I found Power Rangers toys in the stores if I'd wanted them. And like I said,
those have never gone away.
So that's sort of my argument for they're going to go ahead with these films because even if they're minimally profitable in theaters, their resale value on DVD and Blu-ray, or rather, streaming services, digital, people will buy these movies for their kids. They'll watch them at home and they'll buy the toys. This property isn't going anywhere. But
except maybe not back to the theater. That's all I'm saying.
All right. If you want to have that fight, we can have it later. In any case, I was talking about just in terms of the giving the action sequences a C. I mean, like I said, they cheated. It was a lot of cockpit shots, but it was passable enough that I got the idea of what was happening. And they gave you a little bit of Zord on Zord action. Zord on Megazord on whatever the kaiju creatures are called. And it was fine, and then they have the satisfying ending of knocking Rita into space, which I thought was hilarious. And, and the kids, overall, I think 3.5 stars is about right. The arguments about they took itself too seriously, I don't think are accurate. I think it took itself seriously enough to not make this an annoying joke, but I think it retained enough of its juvenile appeal to retain some of its juvenile audience. I just don't know if below maybe 10 are going to really get it or have the patience for it.
All righty. As has been said famously by, every superhero at some point, my turn.
Is this going to be another Age of Extinction? Because if it is, I'm going to go get another drink, preferably alcohol.
I don't think it'll be that bad. I can't speak to how you're going to respond to what I'm about to say. However, I do not expect that level of systemic disagreement.
Are you about to yell out, "Pardon my French, but you're an asshole"?
No.
Okay.
There's a few things that you said that I agree with. One, I actually do like that they took time with the characters. That said, I think there are better ways to do this in the sense that you have to know the audience. Like you said, you're not going to make your bones off of the 25 to 45 crowd here. Now, nostalgia will play a factor, and those of us who don't mind thinking at the movies will enjoy that. But you're trying to sell this to kids, all right? I'm not saying you have to forego all character development. I'm really not. I liked that. I liked that we got time with the characters. They were more fleshed out. They weren't necessarily as stock as you'd be led to believe. That said, a handful of legitimate action sequences peppered throughout this would have gone a long way to breaking up elements of the monotony.
I agree with you.
2, color palette. I don't know why the director thought that aping Zack Snyder was the way to go here.
Just as an aside, have you seen the Justice League trailer?
I have.
I have never seen so many shades of gray captured on film. Yeesh. This man has dog eyes.
And cyborg CGI makes me want to cry.
Yeah, that's terrible, isn't it? I'm hoping they fix that in post.
Seriously, his lines do not match up with his mouth. I mean, like, bad Japanese dubbing 101 here.
I'm really hoping that this is just for the fucking trailer, and they're gonna fix this before November. Because of that, if I have to put up with that level of cyborg CGI, I may walk out of the theater. And if I walk out of Justice League, damn you, Hollywood may have to go in person to Hollywood, and I may have to show up at the Warner Brothers studio with a nail-spiked bat.
Barbed wire wrapped. All right, go with the barbed wire. Because at least, you see, here's why. Because if you show up with the nail bat, everyone's going to know you're a nut. If you show up with the barbed wire, people might just think you're a fan of The Walking Dead. What I provide you with, tips on how to dispose bodies and get by base security checks. Yay me. No, but again, seriously, for a lot of this movie, the color palette is the same washed out blues and grays that you see in Man of Steel or Dawn of Justice. And I'm not saying we needed to go as bright and obvious as the original. Again, I'm not making a whole lot of comparisons to the original, but for the sake of contrast. All right? The original material is very, very bright, is very, very colorful, and everyone wears the color of their Ranger almost exclusively, to the point where you have to question the intelligence of everyone around them. So if we want to go, again, a little more grounded, a little more real-based, I'm okay with that. I really am. That's not a bad thing in and of itself. Not a good thing either, necessarily. But the fact that you went with this color palette for so much of the movie, it contributes to the monotonous feel. The colors are a part of the story. And if you're doing the same color schemes ad nauseum, you're going to contribute to a same feel for the rest of the movie. And that's what happens through large portions of this beginning. Again, up until they actually start fighting things, at which point, Goldar has to be gold, and the Rangers have to be identifiably colorful. But I feel like that's the only time we get, again, a different feel visually in terms of color. Okay, I agree with you about Elizabeth Banks. She chews scenery, and as we've mentioned, the last few villains we've talked about, they're well written. They are well acted. They're meant to be a different perspective in some cases, even if you hate them, and you're supposed to. They are not stock. There's a perfectly valid place for that. By the same token, there's a perfectly valid place for, okay, ham and chew scenery, go. And Elizabeth Banks does a great job doing it. I was okay when they cast her specifically because I knew that this has been brought up before on this show and on when I would guest occasionally on The Long Road to Ruin. Certain actors know how to act and work with facial makeup. And I don't mean a beauty makeup that a woman, I mean face-off makeup. Okay, I spent 3.5 days crafting this giant prosthetic that's going to cover your face. And you have to act with this.
think what's his face in Hellboy.
Ron Perlman, yeah. Or, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Okay? That's what we're talking about here. And I know Elizabeth Banks is not deterred by having that kind of prosthetic applied to her. She can act through and with it. Which is, again, it's a great thing. It's a talent that a lot of people don't have. I mean, James Marsden's a fine actor, but poor writing and, well, you can't use your eyes because you're Cyclops, and he's a dead fish. All right? So she's fine. When they actually get to the action sequences, the martial arts were not good. All right? Let me start off with that. Them fighting off the putties by hand, not visually appealing, and again, as a fan of the martial arts, I took some issues with their choreography. However, once they got the Zords in play, it felt like this is where the filmmakers kind of knew what they were doing a little bit. It was choreographed better. It was done better from that kind of perspective. The real problem is that this is a 2-hour movie, and through, again, 90 minutes at least, you don't get a whole lot to keep you engaged as a film goer. The actors are all fine. Again, no one stands out. Again, apart from Banks, all of the Rangers are just kind of there. All of them being, having their own issues. I mean, again, their fireside bit, while it feels like every angsty teenage group ever, at the same time, again, that's a somewhat universal feeling. We were all teenagers at one point, and we all kind of wanted to just burn the world. So, I get it.
We're in trouble.
Please don't do that.
I'm going to upload it now and just play it randomly.
I hate my life sometimes. Okay, again, I complained a little bit about the first handful of vehicle sequences. They're not shot well. They're not. It's shaky cam. It's from bad perspective.
That first getaway scene with the fucking cow is a real chore to sit through.
It's awful. It is the dirt worst. Even their escape in the van is not much better. At least that's kept. That one's different only because, okay, we're going to slow down at various points. We have to get people into the van. But even that it's not a lot. His joyride in the Mammoth, or the Mastodon, or whatever it is. Funny. Not shot particularly well, but funny in execution. And I was okay with that. Have anything else? No, I think that was it as far as my major points. My biggest issue, again, I have issues with the writing. I have issues with the tonal shifts in this movie because at times it tries to be kind of grimdark, gritty, realistic. You're in a car accident. Here's the actual results of it, which is fine if that's the way you're going, okay? I'm not saying this is good, bad, or indifferent. The problem is they go from that to a little bit campy at times and trying to, have jokes and humor, and it never marries quite fluidly. It's relatively obvious. What?
It's clunky.
It is.
I mean, look, I liked what they were going for, and I generally like the movie, but I'm not going to disagree that it's a little acne, It's a little bumpy skinned. This could have been smoother. This could have been a little prettier, a little bit more competently made in terms of tone, but I didn't hate it.
It got to me a little bit.
It isn't like we've reviewed stuff, or Sean and I have put stuff on trial that was jarringly uneven. You're watching a horror movie. You're watching a love story. You're watching a horror movie. Now it's a thrill ride. What the fuck?
And here's some romance, just for the hell of it.
Yeah. It wasn't, like I said, it definitely seemed like we got to make it was like watching the WWE. Okay? Everyone takes
that
a drink,
bad,
by the way. Well, think about it. What's one of the big complaints that we who are longtime fans of the WWE have? It's that they can't seem to find a balance between the child audience that they want to, one, have an audience for the future, two, that's their cash cow, little kids who buy John Cena headbands, T-shirts, and hats, as opposed to 40-year-old men who we're lucky if we buy a ticket once a year, let alone a fucking T-shirt. On the other hand, they do have the neckbeards that do come out to these things, and they'll take over the show. Like, the little kids are not going to yell, "We want Paige," or CM Punk.
Thankfully.
But the neckbeards will, and the neckbeards show up. So you have to satisfy your neckbeard audience, but you also have to satisfy your kid audience, and the neckbeards and the kids don't like the same stuff. They might like the same brands, but they don't like the same content necessarily. And so the WWE really struggles with finding the right tone and the right content to satisfy two distinctly different masters. And that's this film's greatest flaw, other than some incompetency in how it was shot.
And written. Seriously, some of the dialogue is just not good.
That's the least offensive stuff to me in this movie. It was more of the tonal stuff, and then some of the structure. But, I mean, the kinds of things that you're talking about where you are trying to appeal to children and you're also trying to appeal to neckbeards, and so it kind of shifts between childish and fun to gritty and serious, and it's like, well, what kind of movie are you trying to give us here? What kind of story are you trying to tell? They probably should have just settled on, we're going for the after-school special feel. Since we're telling you a story about disaffected children coming together, then let that be the tone of the movie the whole way through. Don't try to go for gritty realism, and don't make it too childish. Sit firmly in the middle of, this is a movie about kids and their emotions and how the world affects them and how they view the world through this prism of they have to come together to face a greater threat, something bigger than them. They have to find the hero within. And then at the end, you can go balls to the walls with the action, and it's fine. But, now we're in a circle here, so I'll let you finish. But, yeah, it just reminded me of the WWE.
All right. Further validation for my not watching all that much recently. Over No, I mean, your point is valid. It really does struggle to kind of fix those together where, Rita horribly murdering people for their gold teeth, which is a pretty gruesome way to go.
What movie was it where someone was yelling out, "Gold, I want gold"?
I don't know.
Gold! I want gold! Oh, yeah, I might be thinking of Goldfinger now that I'm thinking. Not Goldmember. I love gold!
I haven't seen that one, so I can't comment.
That's what she should have been yelling while that was going on. It would have been funny. Would have been even better.
No, I don't think it would have.
I love gold!
All right. Now, I felt you were generous with your rating. My feeling is more 1.5, maybe 2 stars. If I'm giving it, there are too many errors. There's too many errors, both of omission and commission.
I'll give you 2 stars.
And it's just too and this is, I think, what kind of kills it for me and why I'm like 1.5. There's entirely too much that is utterly mundane. There is nothing interesting as far as execution, as far as characters. No, that's not, again, this is not the worst movie I've seen this year. This is not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's utterly
forgettable.
No, yes.
It's just utterly forgettable.
And
we'll, after I see it again Saturday, I will just as quickly forget about it.
Yeah, there's all of that, and again, not the worst movie I've ever seen, not even the worst movie I've seen this year, but there's just so much wrong and so many easy fixes. I mean, just flat out easy fixes to so many of the problems. Again, you can put a few action sequences in there. You can have Rita send putties to raid jewelry stores. All right? I mean, do it in the dead of night and have them struggle to actually beat these things despite their training. Then you can throw in a few legitimate, fight sequences that show them struggling and having to, try to adapt and overcome. You keep people interested because...
I was going to say, the way to have handled that would have been have Rita too weak to walk around. And then, I can't, I don't have the strength. I will raise my putties to bring me gold. And you're right, then send the putties out, on like a spree where they're smelling the gold and they're going into people's houses and, and the Rangers sort of have to like run into the street and go after them. That sort of thing. The problem again, there's
easy ways to add enough action to really cut. Again, you're appealing to children here, so you have to keep that in mind. That will keep them engaged, and you still don't actually have to sacrifice much of the character development because
you really could have done some. And you really could have done something fun with it, like we can't morph people, but we have to keep our identity secret. Well, how are we going to do this? I don't know. And then there's like, fuck it, put on masks, and like one's got a ski mask on.
Yeah, they could wear like goofy, like goofy ski masks. All right, like
I was like, one's got a ski mask, one's got a Halloween mask.
You can blend some humor into this, people. If you don't want to go too serious, there's places you can insert some comedy. And have them, basically fail, but, try, and have that continue to be the impetus for their, growth and wanting to get better because now they can see that the threat is real before Rita shows up and, molests Trini.
Right. All right. I think we are done here.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think I have anything else to say about the craft of this movie. Again, if I'm giving it stars, it's 1.5 to 2, somewhere in that range for me.
I think between mine and yours, I think we can average. I think a fair, two. I think 2 out of 5 stars is fair. And here's my final word on this: if you have a kid who's 8, 10, 11, 12, maybe 9. Sequence, numbers. 8 to 12, 13, 14, and they want to go see this, they'll probably be fine with it. Younger than 8, you're really running the risk of the child being bored as fuck through most of this movie. Now, if they're good and they can sit through it and are patient enough to wait for the third act, it's probably satisfying enough to go through. But I don't know your kid. Somebody asked me on Facebook, a guy that I went to high school with, how did I think it would be for kids? And there's nothing wrong with it content-wise. If you're wondering why we're not talking about the issue of the one girl being gay, because it's fucking irrelevant. One of the characters is gay.
Completely and utterly. She's not like flagrantly homosexual. She's not making out with other women if you're concerned about that. She's a teen struggling with her sexual orientation. Millions of teenagers.
I would say it matters to the characterization of her. It has no bearing on the plot.
Yeah.
One of the characters is Aspie, as we said before. That had more bearing on the plot. That gets the plot in motion, actually, is his inability to deal with his surroundings and, and some of his social cues. But, there's just nothing to talk about here. As far as inclusion and, the mixing up of races, again, it didn't matter. It's not relevant to the plot, not really worth talking about.
Well, I'll say this. Hang on. Let me say this on that point. It's not relevant to the plot in the greater scheme of things. That being said, since this is one of the few times I will reference the original. You're trying to appeal to as many people as possible, because you're trying to sell toys. So having a racially and ethnically diverse cast of heroes makes the most sense.
And at least they didn't put the Asian Ranger in the yellow costume and the Black Ranger in the black costume. That cracked me up. Still kept the hot girl in the pink costume because you got to. Hot white chick, pink costume. The way it works. Point being, to wrap this up and get on with the money, it's content-wise, there's no reason why you can't bring your kids to this thing. It's fine. It's harmless. It's fun. It's literally like the Marvel formula, paint by numbers. It's as if this. I guess if I had to, like, Rotten Tomatoes, one line sum this up, the line would be, it's as if somebody got a blueprint for a Marvel movie and just colored it in by numbers.
Well, no.
Voila,
They colored. No.
Movie.
Someone got the blueprint for a Marvel movie and used the color scheme from Zack Snyder's from the DC extended universe.
Okay. Another way to look at it, somebody took the blueprint from the Marvel Studios and made a knockoff Marvel movie. Like one of those, I think, Netflix, like transmogrifiers instead of Transformers.
Those aren't Netflix. Those are, what, the Asylum, I think, is the one who does the blockbusters.
Okay, perfect. I couldn't remember the studio. Okay, here it is. This is the Asylum version of a Marvel movie. Here comes the fucking money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
All right. Power Rangers debuted at number 2 this weekend behind The Beast, Beauty and the Beast, which was number 1 for a second week in a row. Power Rangers has a $100 million budget. It performed ahead of its domestic expectations with a $40 million opening. It only did $18 million foreign. I don't know how much better or good it's going to do in the coming weeks. Like I said, next week is Ghost in the Shell, so it's not like it has and Boss Baby. So I don't know how much competition it really has. And then going into April, I mean, there's just nothing. It's a woof. If March broke your movie budget, you're getting a break. Because I'm going to pull up the calendar in just a second here. But the April movies, other than The Fate of the Furious, suck diddly yuck. With that being said, this has every opportunity to at least make its budget, double its budget, which I think it will when it's all said and done. But we're currently sitting at a weekend gross of $58 million. We did say this was going to be a tough sell with, Logan, Kong, and Beauty and the Beast all overperforming in most cases. As far as where we stand, well, I'll tell you where we stand for the weekend first. As I said, Beauty and the Beast repeated number 1. Power Rangers debuted at number 2. Kong Skull Island got knocked from 2 to 3. Life debuted at 4. Now that movie is fucking tanking.
Which is kind of sad because
knockoff.
Which is kind of sad because that's a decent cast aside from Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, Gavin's going to be mad at you.
Gavin is well aware of my perspective on Ryan Reynolds and how it clashes with his own. We've both come to terms with agreeing to disagree on that. Besides, it's not like he listens to this show anyway.
Good point. Logan, so yeah, life is tanking. This is yet another one of these movies where the people at Sony are going, fuck it, we'll just make Spider-Man movies. we can't take it anymore. Yeah, life is bombing. Logan went from 3 to 5. Get Out 4 to 6. Chips. Chips is bombing too, believe it or not.
As it should.
Hang
on. Can I talk a little bit about that? About Chips and elements of kind of what it represents?
Lack of ideas in Hollywood, but go on. Yeah, God,
well,
Chips got a $25 million. Hang on, Chips has a $25 million budget. It didn't even make that in its first weekend. It made $10 million worldwide.
Good.
Eesh.
Fail miserably.
Warner Brothers.
It's not just a lack of It's not just a lack of creativity, though it is that as well. I mean, look, all these old shows that we have access to. Let's make movies. Here's the real problem. All right, look, again, that's lazy to begin with from a creative standpoint, but you don't really get a lot of creative people writing movies these days, apparently. They're all making television or, Netflix series. They're in a format where they can be creative and good and not have to worry about studio executives sending them notes ad nauseum. All right? I'll kind of forgive elements of, boy, we're sure lazy, because fair enough, you're a suit. Okay. There's a real fundamental misunderstanding about those properties. There seems to be this idea that, well, it was made in the 70s. It's got to be hokey and stupid. So let's make a crappy R-rated comedy. And just so much no. I mean, just look. Are those shows campy by today's standards? Stuff like Starsky and Hutch or Chips or Charlie's Angels or the A-Team or any number of other ones. Yeah, again, sure, that's fair. By today's standards. If you want to really understand what made a series successful, you can't necessarily view it through that prism. Chips was not a comedy, all right? Are there comedic moments? Sure. And again, from the 70s, a little bit hokey? Sure. That doesn't mean we want Dax Shepard and Michael Pena throwing obscenity around while being incompetent. That is completely contrary to what made the series successful in the first place. And again, that fundamental ignorance, and that, well, this is the lens through which I view it, therefore this is the correct lens, therefore people will pay to see it. Hey, people loved Ghostbusters. Let's throw a bunch of chicks in there and spend a lot of money on CGI. That'll work. No. People love Chips. Let's get a funny man Mexican in Michael Pena and Dax Shepard because he's married to Kristen Bell and we feel we want to throw the guy a bone. And, well, again, we'll throw profanity and sex jokes and crude humor, and people who love the original will pay to see this, right? And everyone with a brain is banging their head against a wall going, you stupid, stupid people. You want to adapt an old television series into a movie? Fine. The reason the A-Team was successful on a craft level was because it looked at what they did successfully, it updated it, and it removed some of the hokey elements. And it took itself just seriously enough. And again, the A-Team movie is not a cinematic masterpiece. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and still do every time I get around to rewatching it.
The activity and then the reaction to them flying a tank remains one of the funniest things I've ever seen in film.
No, they're trying to fly the tank.
They're flying a tank.
Again, they take the absurdity of some of their schemes. They remove the stupid 80s trope of no one can die on camera, because that was a thing. And again, they took what made it work and they just kind of expanded on it. And if we contrast that with, Chips or Starsky and Hutch, where, well, it's from the 70s, let's be stupid. Because seriously, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, what could go wrong? Well, everything, including every decision that was made leading to your conception so you could make that decision, you jackass. I blame your parents for that one, for giving you life and then rearing you in such a way that you believed this was the correct way to go about business.
Okay, if just for the sake of time here, kind of the last word on Power Rangers in and of itself. As I said, Chips debuted at 7. The Shack from 5 to 8. Lego Movies is still in the top 10. Went from 6 to 9. And then rounding out the top 10 is the Belko Experiment, which went from 7 to 10. Being knocked out of the top 10 this week were Hidden Figures from January, John Wick 2, and I believe that's it. As far as, and Before I Fall went from number 10 to 27. Real quick, Slamma-Jamma debuted at number 11. Wilson at number 19, and Solari at number 21. Those are the movies that all came out this past week. As far as, Power Rangers and will it make its $200 million, look, like I said, and I finally have the calendar up, next week, for those of you that aren't going to be invested in watching WrestleMania, actually, sorry, I take that back. That's the following week. Next movie release weekend, which is the 7th, which part of the reason why we're not doing this is I will be on vacation, so I'm giving Robert a break here. But the only movie coming out that's competing for the same audience, at least part of the same audience as Power Rangers, is the Smurfs Lost Village, currently rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. But at least
it's terrible.
At least they got rid of the human actors in this thing on screen,
and
they went with an all-animated thing.
Having less work, don't get me wrong. But can we just make a Smurfs movie to begin with?
Look, the Smurfs make money, and this will probably, this thing's got a budget of 90 minutes. This thing's got a budget of I'll check, but I figure if they shot this thing for a song, it'll probably make its money. Kids, they've been advertising it for a while. Kids want to go see it. Columbia, Sony, their animated division, usually puts out a pretty good product. I can't say anything for their live-action studio.
Well, you could, but it's not pleasant.
Smurfs is probably going to be fine. Then you have the Going in Style, which I haven't even seen a trailer for this. So this is the Zach Braff directed movie with Morgan Freeman.
Oh, come on. This
Michael
thing looks
Caine.
funny. This is the buddy heist movie starring the old guys. Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and Alan Arkin.
Yeah, that thing's gonna bomb.
Probably.
It'll probably do fine when it goes. It'll probably be fine when it goes to HBO, but no one's going to see that in the theaters. Then you have something by a Neon studio called Colossal, which is a sci-fi comedy. Yeah, and then finally something from Fox Searchlight with Chris Evans and Jenny Slate called Gifted. No one's going to see that. So the only people going to see that live in New York and Los Angeles. No one else is going to see this movie. So really, Power Rangers has the entire month of April to make up the difference and get to 200 to 300. I bet it settles in around 300 million overall, because the 14th is when you have the Fate of the Furious, and again, you're competing for it's two different audiences. This is your next big budget.
Plus, by that point, Power Rangers will have run its course.
No, it'll be in theaters for a while, but I think it'll get through April. But there's nothing else coming out that week that anyone's gonna. And like I said, if you're trying to get kids to go see this thing, that might not be a bad weekend. Then the 21st, you've got Born in China, Unforgettable, which is a Warner Brothers movie, Free Fire. There's nothing here for kids. And then on the 28th, there's nothing. It's The Circle, How to Be a Latin Lover, and Slight, which was from WWE Studios. Here's my prediction. Excuse me. Excuse me, everybody. Apologize. And this is the last thing I'm going to say before we move on to the Rotten Tomatoes bit. Or rather, before I do the worldwide grosses and then we move on to Rotten Tomatoes. If Power Rangers has not made $300 million by the weekend of the 28th, its run is over. Whatever it is at that point is where it's going to stay because it's not making money after that. Because the next weekend is Guardians of the Galaxy, and we are into the summer. So that's the end of that. That's the finish line. It's got to the 28th to, run to make as much money as it possibly can.
Got a month
and I wish it the best of luck. Yep. So hold me to that, Mr. Memory. Hold me to it, Mr. Wizard. Let's see if my prediction is true. I think it'll do it, but wherever it is by the 28th, that's where it's staying. It's not doing much better than that.
I'm less optimistic. I don't think this has a lot of rewatch value.
I'm seeing it twice. All right.
Well, sure, but that's only because you couldn't. Look, if you could have taken your daughter to see it before we had to review it, you would have done it in one trip instead of two.
You ain't just whistling Dixie. The number one movie in America is still Beauty and the Beastly. Currently sitting at $326 million domestic, followed by Logan, followed by the Lego Batman movie. We do love our Legos. Rounding at the top five, we've got two horror movies here, Get Out and Splits. And then after that, Kong, 50 Shades, John Wick, A Dog's Purpose has made it into the top 10 of American movies. It's incredible. And finally, The Shack. XXX, The Return of Xander Cage, not the number one, not in the top 10 in America. Power Rangers currently sitting at number. Power Rangers, thank God, overtook Monster Trucks at the number 13 spot. That's here in America. Worldwide, with the Chinese Chinaman, here we go. The number one movie in the world. We are $300 million away from $1 billion, our first $1 billion baby of the year. That actually came out in 2017. Beauty and the Beastly. Followed by Logan, currently sitting pretty at $566 million, which I don't have the numbers in front of me. I should look. I want to see if that's finally, if in 1 month it beat X-Men Apocalypse's entire run.
Pretty close.
Yeah, I want to say it was somewhere in the 500 millions. Kong Skull Island, I believe, is profitable finally. That needed to make about $370 million at a budget of $18.5. It's currently sitting at almost $400 million. So, Warner Brothers wiped their brow. They're like, it's profitable. It's all we care. It's all we gave a shit about. Kong is the number 3 movie in the world, followed by 50 Shades Darker and the movie we should have reviewed in January. I should have scrounged up the money and made you review this thing. XXX, The Return of Xander Cage, currently sitting at number 5, $346 million.
You really don't want to have heard my thoughts on that movie.
Power Rangers is the number 24 movie in the world, sitting between The Shack and Monster Trucks. Monster Trucks, it has made $3 million more than Power Rangers. Come on, Power Rangers. You can beat Monster Trucks. I know you can.
They will by this time. They will in 5 days. I mean, Monster Trucks was a massive flop.
Of course it was. But you know what's funny about that? And we can kind of end the discussion here. They're selling Monster Truck toys at Toys R Us. And I know that because my son was playing with them at the store. And he don't know Monster Trucks from, the Monster Jam, which is Monster Trucks. And he was like, I want these toys. Had no conception of what they were. He just saw Monster Trucks and thought they were dandy. Had no interest in the movie, by the way. I mean, even he looked at the trailer. He was well into 2, okay, not even close to 3 when he saw the trailer for Monster Trucks. And he's a huge fan of Monster Trucks and looked at me and said, nope, this is too stupid for even me.
I approve of that bit of logic. Now, if only he would apply it to the Boss Baby.
He loves Boss Baby. Loves it. Loves it. Just does nothing. It's all he wants to see. It's all he wants to talk about. He gets so excited every time he sees the poster.
And again, I can't help
Boss
but feel
Baby.
that this is your failing as a parent.
I am the best parent ever.
You are far from the worst parent. That's all I can say with any degree of certainty.
Okay. You got your finger on the trigger?
Always.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I don't know how funny this is going to be because you're probably going to agree with a lot of these. I almost feel like I should read instead of reading the rotten ones, I should read the fresh ones. But here we go.
Look, here's all you need to do. You need to find the ones that are stupid and wrong. And whether they're positive or negative, I will yell at them equally. This is not about them agreeing or arriving at the same conclusion I did. This is about them being bad at their jobs.
Okay. I'll do my best. Keisha Hatchett of the Mary Sue. Power Rangers is a wholly unnecessary cash cow that isn't so bad if you just lower your expectations. It's another one that hates capitalism.
First of all, cash cows exist to be slaughtered as such. All right? There's nothing inherently wrong with that. That said, I'm not sure how valid a line. Well, if you lower your expectations enough, you'll enjoy it is. I mean, I'm just really unsure as to whether or not that is leaning towards like a non-entity as far as opinions go. Like, well, it's a guilty pleasure, or oh, the sky sure is blue. Well, if you lower your expectations enough, well, look, if you've been hit in the head enough or have suffered other forms of brain damage, you're amused by jingling keys. This is not a real thing as far as, well, you should lower your expectations. I'm not sure, unless you provide proper context for it, that's a legitimately helpful criticism.
Robert, I love you like a brother, but we've been at this for 2 hours, and in 3 minutes, that's exactly what we'll have been doing. Now, I understand we spent the first 20 minutes jerking off and bullshitting, but Jesus Christ, you have just committed yourself to over 2 hours of talking about the Power Rangers movie. Please keep these to 50 words or less.
Okay.
Come on. I can't believe how long in the tooth we've become. We have got to learn to edit ourselves. And I'm just as much to blame. People listen to this podcast going, Jesus, I've never seen two people talk this long about a movie that only deserved 90 minutes of conversation at best.
Oh, it deserved less. Like, the 90 minutes should have included us being, weird.
Ryan Porter of the Toronto Star, top critic, creme de la creme, best of the best. You can picture the pitch. If you sort of liked Power Rangers when it was half recycled footage, wait until you see a version that cost over $100 million.
I will say this. I was a little bit surprised at the budget. Just $100 million seems a bit steep for this. That's all I'm saying. As far as you attempting to mock studio executives, you're supposed to be the best critic, not aping a bit that Mark and I do. Try harder next time.
Keith Watson of Slant Magazine. Power Rangers is so concerned with launching a mature teen-targeted franchise that it often forgets to have some fun. No idea what this person is talking about.
I'd argue that the biggest problem is that it can't decide if it wants to have fun or be targeted at angsty teenagers. There's not a lack of fun here. There's plenty of gags, all right? I mean, even if I don't find them funny, you can tell when they are attempting to be humorous. There's a lot of, again, there's plenty of funny and fun that is attempted to be put in here. The issue is unevenness, not, well, they're not trying to have fun. No, you misread this, sir. Pretty badly.
Brian Truitt of USA Today, top critic. Hope you take your Zords with a large helping of cheese.
See, again, I'd question. Don't get me wrong. Is there some cheese here? Yeah, there is. That's expected given the material and what they're trying to do with it, and B, it's not nearly as cheesy as it could have been, and there's a perfectly valid argument that it might have been better with more cheese. It's also, again, not as cheesy as even just the trailer for the return of Xander Cage.
Barry hurts. Everybody hurts. That's actually not how it's spelled. Globe and Mail, top critic. A work of soulless indifference. Now that's just unfair. No. That is deeply wrong. All right, look. If you want to say that the movie doesn't have much of a soul and that it's, a blatant cash grab, you're correct on the second half. But they go out of their way. They spend, again, 90 minutes of a 2-hour movie doing nothing but trying to develop characters beyond stock angry teenagers. They make a legitimate effort as far as that goes. If you want to say that it's derivative, yes, it is. That it's forgettable, completely. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have a soul. That doesn't mean it doesn't have an emotional core that it attempts to get to resonate, because it does. Whether it succeeds or not is largely personal, but it does make the attempt, and you're failing to acknowledge that it tried, which is an important part of what you're trying to say. All right. I don't know how you're going to feel about this next one, but I'm reading it because it made me laugh. I don't even know if I disagree with it. It was just funny to me, and I felt like I needed to read it. Katie Walsh of Tribune News Service, top critic. If the Rangers are on the CW, Banks is in a universe of her own, talking about the small town of Angel Grove in hobo dominatrix gear, dramatically stage whispering gold, crystals, and Krispy Kreme to no one in particular.
That's pretty funny. No, this is...
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I understand the point about the CW. There's a lot of melodrama for the first little bit, which is, again, I appreciate it in the attempt, but if you just looked at this and rolled your eyes and goes, I have to watch and review both like Arrow and the originals and the Flash and all this other CW crap. I don't need it in my movies. I understand your fatigue, and I really do. That's why I don't watch that crappy network anymore.
I think this one's going to get your goat, though. David Ehrlich of IndieWire, top critic. A mega budget, fucking $100 million is mega budget. Okay, buddy. A mega budget reboot that's embarrassed of the TV show it's bringing to the big screen. That's wholly unfair.
Whoa, wait. You mean attempting to alter the tone of the material that you're given means you're embarrassed by it? Well, boy, I wonder how Zack Snyder feels about some of the Golden Age Superman stuff. Because, wow. There's a world of difference. If they were embarrassed by the original, they would not have snuck in nearly as many stupid references to it as they did. All right? Let's be very, very clear about that.
Yeah.
Rita would never have uttered the phrase, "make my monster grow." You would not have gotten the stupid song. You wouldn't have even gotten the shot of all the Zords running side by side. Right. The words "Go, Go, Power Rangers" would never have come out of Bill Hader's mouth. Look, again, there's a world of difference between attempting to update and taking a different spin on things, and boy, what we're trying to adapt was just the dirt worst. I'm so ashamed of this. Again, that's fundamentally inaccurate. Trying to take a different tack on something doesn't mean you're embarrassed about what you're doing. Unless you're that schmuck from Four Stick. All of them.
Josh Bell of Las Vegas Weekly, another one with the fun comments. The movie is far too silly to be taken seriously, and it takes itself far too seriously to be any fun. Says you.
Again, fun is subjective. However, we talked about it being uneven, and I think that's kind of what he's trying to get at. So the core of his point is somewhat accurate. Unfortunately, he phrases it in such a way that, well, my opinion is immovable fact, which is a big gripe I have with critics being bad at their jobs.
Christopher Campbell of the Film School Rejects does nothing for anyone who isn't cheering for cameos of Amy Jo Johnson and Jason David Frank and the one utterance of "Ay, ay, ay" by Alpha 5. Oh, you neckbeard. You angry, angry neckbeard.
Grrr. Superman killed someone. Batman killed people. Whatever will I do with all my anger?
Where's Tom Bombadil? Where is he? Lord of the Rings sucks.
Yeah. First of all, he actually says "ay, ay, 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 ay" more than once. I mean, just proving that you don't pay attention to what you're doing. Yeah. That is uttered more than once. And two, no, there's plenty here for people who weren't fans of the original. Now, whether it actually appeals to children, whole different subject. But there's a reason, I suppose, you're part of Film School Rejects instead of people actually in film school.
And you're not a top critic. You're the Willy Waffles. Nell Minow of BeliefNet. Dude, this Willy Waffles guy is gonna find where I live.
We give him so much. We give him grief, but we also, I think, give him more plugs than he deserves. We need a better example.
Honestly, you know what's funny is he's probably gotten more readers based on our podcast than people who actually go to Rotten Tomatoes. Which is kind of sad. This uncomfortable...
Yeah, we want to check, Willie.
Nell Minow of BeliefNet. This uncomfortable mixture of teen angst, parentheses, sexting, exclamation point, disappointing parents, exclamation point, end parentheses, and cartoonish violence only comes alive when Banks is on screen. So one of the universal constants in these reviews is everybody loves Elizabeth Banks. At least I'm not alone there.
Well, she's the easiest part of this movie to enjoy because she plays into the, trope that you expect from a movie designed to sell toys. She's big, she's bombastic, she's brightly colored most of the time, and she chews scenery left and right. It's easy to appreciate what she does versus what other people do. And just very briefly, I completely understand that, teenage angst gets a little old the more you're exposed to it. That really shouldn't necessarily that shouldn't mean you can just dismiss the fact that, well, we're dealing with teenagers, ergo they must be angsty. I mean, sure, maybe a little bit tired, maybe a little bit into type, but did they execute it well? Not did they present us with angsty teenagers? And I think they executed it well. Sure, that deals with stuff like, again, sexting or disappointing your parents. That's a big deal for teenagers. And when you're telling things from the teenage perspective, Lord forbid we actually deal with things that matter to them.
That's the thing, though. Like, if you were to get on a blackboard or a whiteboard and start listing things that are relative to a teenager's life, sexting would be high on that list. Especially if you're just going to throw things out there to deal with, and move the story along without having to get too deep into anything. I mean, you don't really want to get into teen rape and pregnancy. That probably leads, probably not a good place to deal with it in the Power Rangers movie. But if you're looking for a handful of things to deal with that you can kind of address and move on without getting too deep or dragging the movie into a tangent, I'm okay with the sexting thing. I mean, that shouldn't be a knock on the movie.
And it's not like a somewhat famous professional wrestler just had, pictures and videos of her engaged in various activities just leaked all over the internet. Again, this is a thing. So, I mean, would you complain if we were... would you have the same complaint if Period Piece set in the inner city dealt with the plight of the black community and the introduction of crack cocaine?
All right,
this again. Can we get a movie about black people in the 80s that doesn't deal with the drug problem?
We did. It was called The Cosby Show, and he turned out to be raping people. Let's move on. Haim Simon Pillai, I guess, now Toronto. Nobody involved cared to change a property that left infinite room for improvement. Yeah, infinite room, sure, for improvement.
No, that's fair.
Because,
like there's near infinite room that you could have improved on the original. That's fair.
Okay. Perhaps because that would merely have subjected it to comparisons to everything from Transformers to Godzilla.
Which it's already garnering because, well, it kind of failed on that level. I mean, again, issues with the action aside, no, and Mark and I talked about this. They actually did go through. Did you, sir? Hang on, I just realized this. Now, they didn't update the original much. Did you watch the original? Because, boy, was it both paint by numbers and insultingly stupid. And as a kid, I loved it. I mean, you're a kid. What else are you going to love, right?
At least they left out the dumb leather-clad bullies in this. I'm going to read a couple of quick ones here to get to the end of this.
Yeah.
Robbie Collin, I want like 10-word responses here. Robin Collin of the Daily Telegraph UK appears to have been shot by the Hunchback of Notre Dame and edited by a monkey wearing oven gloves.
No. Again, shot on a GoPro at times, sure. Quasimodo, not so much. And okay, there's a few points during like the first act where the editing, especially of like the dialogue, was a little bit lackluster. But on the whole, not by a monkey wearing oven mitts.
All right, Sandy. Speaking of fucking angst, Sandy Aguilo Chen of Common Sense Media, violent. More mature Rangers reboot is overly angst-filled.
Yeah, because again, God forbid we spend 90 minutes with teenage characters and not actually deal with teenage issues. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but there's a reason it went that way, you moron.
I'm not the biggest. I don't know what Common Sense Media is. I have a funny feeling it's like a Christian group or something. There's no way that person's like doesn't have some sort of religious agenda. All right,
Common
Andy
sense
Webster,
still being surprisingly uncommon.
Andy Webster of the New York Times, or as I'm, the New York Communist, top critic. Saban, these people don't like when anyone makes money. Saban's Power Rangers may surpass the original, but for what lesson? The value of teamwork? More likely, of a franchise payoff. Oh, no! A movie is attempting to make money. Perish the thought.
I can't believe it. Capitalism. I hate it so much. Come on.
Die, you people who make money like I do for writing that.
Don't get me wrong. I am as sick as the next guy, not Mark, but the next guy, because Mark loves these things, of sequel baiting, and we have to franchise everything. I'm sick of it. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason people are trying to do it, because they do have to make money. And, yeah, hey, they updated it. They taught more about, teamwork and trying to come together and so on and so forth. Has it been done better in other places? Sure. Again, Mark and I will direct you to the Netflix Voltron series, which is superior in every way.
Every way. All right. I'm going to leave it at this, because I could continue to dig, but it's really funny as I read these. I'm like, oh, we kind of agree with a lot of these rotten reviews. But I'm gonna leave it at this one, because this pisses me off. And I'll tell you, I love the guys over at Screen Junkies. I want to be on your show. Andy, listen to my podcast and invite me on your show. Ricky, I want to go to the club. Anyway, but one of the things I really hate about some of the guys that participate in the Screen Junkies movie fights, and as much as I enjoy them as seemingly people, as personalities, but occasionally some of the guys that work there just say things that irritate me to no end. And one of those things that is often bandied about is, this is unnecessary. We don't need it. It really isn't for any of us to determine what is necessary in art. Art in and of itself isn't necessary. Necessary is air. Necessary is food. Necessary is shelter. Art is necessary in the sense that it enhances quality of life. It enhances culture. It promotes greater levels of thinking. In many cases, art can also preserve history, preserve our legacies. But we won't die without it. So, really, the concept of art and the production of art is to serve the purpose of entertainment. And again, entertainment it is necessary but on a higher level than your base needs. So it really irritates me when people start going, well, this isn't necessary. No, you just don't like it is the problem. You don't like Jurassic World. That's why you think it's not necessary. But for the billions of people who fucking saw the movie and thought it was great, maybe they didn't think it was necessary. Maybe that was the high point of their day. It's the height of arrogance whenever I hear someone utter the phrase, this movie, this song, this TV show wasn't necessary. You get to make that comment when you are the one putting money into it, in terms of it is not necessary for us to make this thing to make money, because it won't make money. Or there's whatever the reasons are that you might not want to make the thing. But as just a casual viewer, fuck you. Fuck you. Just fuck
that
you.
Being said,
okay?
As a guy who didn't care much for Jurassic World, again, I agree with you. Calling it unnecessary is just fundamentally inaccurate.
So with that said, as our final rotten review read for tonight, Mike McCahill of The Guardian, we didn't really need any of this. Not the repackage, nor more superheroics, nor the closing credits cover of Snaps the Power. Sir, stop reviewing movies. Stop going to the movies. Quit your job at Guardian. Walk into the woods so that you can live deliberately.
As long as those woods are located in Siberia. I will say this. Hang on. I will give him this. Yeah, no. Bear in mind, when I say you didn't need the new cover of that song at the end, you really should have just used the original. A cover should be made when something about the original doesn't fit, be it tone, be it instrumentation, be it vocal quality. Again, the cover of California Dreamin' from San Andreas was necessary to the film because the original California Dreamin' doesn't fit as far as both the trailer where they use it and the tone of the film. Here, really, you should have just used the original. There's not a whole lot of valid reason to pay, because there's no difference. I mean, there really isn't a substantial difference in this cover and the original. Consequently, you should have just used the original. That said, the rest of it, no. Yeah. Siberia, be gone. We're better off without you.
All right, and with that said, we are taking next week off. I was off on the calendar a little bit. Next week, I'm gone this whole weekend, so I'm not going to the movies. Therefore, we are not reviewing Ghost in the Shell, or at least I won't be. If Robert would like to review Ghost in the Shell with somebody else, you need to get with Jesse and figure out where on the schedule you will be doing that. There might actually be an open space Monday because I don't think Jesse's doing a source material. You'll have to talk to him. But Tuesday, where we would normally be doing either a Damn You Hollywood or a TV party, is actually going to be dedicated to Sean Garmer from WrestlingToTheMax.net. Sorry, WrestlingToTheMax.net. Garmer and his crew will be reviewing WrestleMania weekend. They'll look at the Hall of Fame, presumably. They'll look at NXT, obviously WrestleMania, and, of course, the Raw after WrestleMania. The silliest night in wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. The night where the masses of wherever WrestleMania had been held hijacked the show And the WWE has just waved the white flag and said, it's yours, take it, rape it, right in the ass. Do what you want with it. We give up.
No lube.
No lube. I will not be part of this because I will be part of the SmackDown Live crowd. My family will be at the Amway Center in Orlando in our box seats like Richie Rich folks watching SmackDown. Wednesday night, body count, motherfuckers. Yeah, the best night of the year. Oh, shit. Body counts in the house, everybody. The Metal Hammer of Doom reviews Bloodlust because no lives matter. That's right. Love you,
I've been saying that for freaking years. Now all of a sudden Ice-T wants to steal it?
Yep, he stole your bit.
That's
so
all
the Metal
right.
Hammer of Doom. The Metal Hammer of Doom will bring you its most obnoxious show yet, as Jesse and I, and probably not Cooper, will be reviewing the album we're most excited about this year, Body Count's Bloodlust. Thursday. Now, we taped this show actually a couple of months ago, but we are pulling it out of the can, and it will be debuting Thursday. Minimalism, because Jesse made me. That being Jesse Starcher. Jesse Starcher and I are going to be talking about the documentary that was on Netflix called Minimalism, and I will be on a cruise. And so from the 6th through the 10th, I'm not available to do anything. So we are also skipping the Smurfs, much to Robert's chagrin.
Robert would not have reviewed the Smurfs anyway.
So with that being said, the following week, the 10th through the 14th, I will not be doing shows on the 10th or the 11th, as I have work commitments that week. But, people will fill in, shows will be had, we'll do something. I just won't be a part of them. The Metal Hammer of Doom will return on Wednesday, covering the other album that's coming out at the same time as Body Count, which is the new Mastodon, Emperor of Sand. And then, I haven't changed this on the calendar. Shit. Ronnie and I will be reviewing, I think it's Silverado, is what he wanted me to do. I'll have to check with him again. I thought I saved this. But anyway, Thursday, April 13th, because Ronnie made me, we'll be reviewing a Western, which I believe is Silverado.
Hey, Silverado's pretty solid. It's got a good cast. Kevin Costner, Kevin Kline, Danny Glover.
Okay, I think
Scott Glenn.
I'm fine with it. I think that's the one he asked for because originally it was Equilibrium and then he switched it and I don't remember and I thought
Jeff
I wrote it down.
Jeff Goldblum's in that too.
For the sake of argument, Silverado because Ronnie Adams made me, and then we will be back. Damn You Hollywood in its only April entry, and that's where we're gonna end my plugs. Happens to be right in the middle of Cars Week, not Cars the animated cartoon, oddly enough, but Vroom Vroom Cars. We'll be reviewing The Fate of the Furious on Tuesday, April 18th, and then the Metal Hammer of Doom reviews Zombie Motors Wrecking Yard. Literally picked it because it had the word motor in it. I also think it's a pretty cool album. And then On Trial makes its only April entry, as I will be prosecuting and Sean will be defending Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh, God, no. Why?
Because he picked it.
Oh. Ow. That hurts my brain. Just ow.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm going to end this here and let you do your plugs. He literally told, as we were, when we were doing Long Road to Ruin, I had thrown Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run on there as franchises I wanted to talk about, and he was like, yeah, I'm all about that. So then I'm like, okay, well, we need a show for the week that we're doing Fate of the Furious. I want to keep it car themed to kind of go along with Fate of the Furious. And, I didn't want to make a big deal like I did with Logan, with Wolverine Week all week long, but I did want to do kind of a small car theme, kind of keep it all in the same category. But it was his turn to pick a show. So I said, okay, you're picking the only show for April. Your only hook is that it has to be car themed. And then he told me, like, he gave me a thing, and I'm like, that's not Cars, buddy. He was like, I know, but we're doing a show on 420. It's pot related. I'm like, oh fuck, you're right. It is 420. And I'm like, all right, now we have two hooks. We have to do a show related to pot, and we have to do a show related to car, and that's how we landed on Dude, Where's My Car?
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
And that's how the sausage is made here at the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
All right. Very briefly, this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be hosting the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. It was off last week because nothing happened. This week we'll be Look, Bellator announced, hey, we're going to do a pay-per-view in Madison Square Garden and charge you $50, and the collective MMA world went, nope.
You'll have to send me a link on that one.
What? Which part?
A link to steal the show.
Okay. Yeah, just not a whole lot happened. So this week we'll be previewing UFC 210. Kind of a one-card show. The main and co-main are okay. Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Johnson, and then Chris Weidman versus Gegard Mousasi. I'm not sure how to feel about Thiago Alves versus Patrick Cote. It's just kind of there. Will Brooks and Charles Oliveira is not a bad fight, though. It's not the best. So we'll be previewing that this coming Sunday. The Sunday after that, we will be... so that's not the 2nd, but that will be the 9th. We will be reviewing 210, and we will be previewing UFC on Fox 24, which is a pretty darn good Fox card. You got a flyweight title fight between Demetrius Johnson and Wilson Hayes. Rose Namajunas and Michelle Watterson are fighting. Honestly, apart from Demetrius Johnson, because I love Demetrius Johnson, the fight I'm looking forward to the most is Ronaldo Jacare Souza fighting Robert Whittaker, because, oh boy, that's a good one. It's a really good Fox card. Tim Elliott's fighting on the...
Robert Whittaker's a dead man.
Hey, don't say...
Seriously.
Look, hang on.
Hang on. Here's my reasoning for this. Wait. Here's my reasoning for this. No, there's no other reason than both anybody at this point, unless things change with the Bisping GSP fight, until Yoel Romero or Jacare Souza get a title shot, they are going to murder dead, D-E-D dead, anyone that gets in their way.
I'm not selling Whittaker short. I'm actually a fan of Whittaker and his abilities. I think he has a lot of potential. He hits hard. Jacare is a little hittable, but as soon as this thing gets close, Jacare on the mat is peerless in that division. But yeah, I agree with your assessment. I mean, look, Romero basically murdered Chris Weidman. I mean, that jumping knee was sick. And Jacare's has publicly said, if they're not gonna give me a title shot, I'm going to kill this division until they can't deny me any longer. Which is
the
fine.
most awesome thing anyone's ever said in the history of MMA.
And which is fine, because, look, Bisping's going to keep running. Or if GSP wins, he's fighting Conor McGregor. He is not fighting the class of that division. There's just no way. So, anyway.
Yoel Romero is going to show up at Bisping's fucking house, punch him in the face, and run off with the title.
He might. Yoel Romero is a scary human being. I mean, look, Bisping can only run for so long. And the UFC can only protect him for so long.
I have said there are many people from flyweight to heavyweight in the UFC that I would gladly get in the cage with in my current cancerous condition and take a fight and not, and whether I got my ass kicked or not, would not feel like I didn't at least have a chance. Yoel Romero, not one of those people.
Yoel Romero is a scary human being.
Soldier of God, and I'm not arguing with him about it.
Now, look, he and Anthony Johnson, I think, are probably the two just flat-out scariest men to get in the cage with.
There's a guy I did an assessment on back in the other jail I used to work in. You know, they dragged his carcass into my office, sat him down, and I said, "Sir, how can I help you today?" Well, he's very polite with the inmates. And he said, "I am the voice of God." And I went, "You certainly are, sir. I have no reason to argue with you," and just kept on writing. That would be how I would react to Yoel Romero. "I am a soldier of God." "Yes, you are, sir. I have no reason to argue with you."
Yeah, lest you flying knee me in the face and take my head clean off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Seriously, he has two of those. I think it was Derek Brunson he knocked out with one of those way back. No, Brunson was knees to the body. Who was it? Like his UFC debut was a flying knee knockout. Just knocked the guy cold. It was crazy.
Yeah, he's a scary motherfucker.
Anyway, so you can look forward to those shows on the Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 411 Ground and Pound Radio Show. Should be a good time. I think that's all I have to plug as far as that goes. I'll have coverage of those events. Got a couple of weeks off. Feel so good about it. There's none last week, none this week. No coverage. But I will have live coverage of UFC 210 when it airs April, was it 2nd? I think it's 2nd, in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. So stop by, say hello. I appreciate it. Deal with my terrible, terrible coverage. Have a conversation, because I've got good commenters.
All right,
seriously,
that's it.
The comment section. Good bunch of guys. My coverage, a tad repetitive.
So, hey, real quick before we go, because let's drag this podcast out just a little bit longer.
Why not?
So we wrapped up March. That's 4 solid weeks of reviews. How do you feel?
I'm good. I feel pretty good. I mean, it was a good selection of films. A lot of fun was had.
Speaking.
You know, there were a few. You know, Logan and Beauty and the Beast were both very, very good. You know, solid. Kong was acceptable fun, and this was not good necessarily, but better than I expected in many ways. And again, not the worst movie.
It was one of those. It was like, it ain't half bad, yeah, but it ain't half good neither.
That's about right.
All right, hit the button, baby.
All right, for Mark Radulich, I'm Robert Winfree, thanking you all for sticking with us through this monstrosity. Hope you'll all come back for our next review. Until then, please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.
There is more to me, Queen Eliara of Elfgard, than my elven magic. Just as there's more to Geico than saving you money, Geico also gives you 24/7 access to licensed agents online, on the phone, or on the Geico app. And while I am a mighty elf queen, I am also a mighty big fan of barbecue potato chips. Minions! More smoky mesquite.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.